First, giving all praises and honor to Yahweh, the creator of heaven and the earth and of the universe. We appreciate you, we cherish you, and we honor you. Please let me not be remiss of acknowledging your begotten Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, he who had allowed himself to be crucified for the sins of your people, Yahweh. And with that being said, we're going to speak on a very important topic. The name of this topic is religious isolation versus spiritual insulation. So, welcome my beautiful wife.
Hey y'all.
Her name is Simcha Bat Israel Eshet Nadav Ben Israel. What we gonna speak about?
Religious isolation versus spiritual insulation. We're
She said
speaking about what that really means. What is the difference between religious isolation and what it really means to be spiritually insulated, which the message is derived from another message that we heard online, and we thought, that sounds good. Let's speak about that because it hits on a very religiously isolated environment that you could say my husband came from.
I did.
And me, on the other hand, I wasn't in a religiously isolated environment, but I was very, very spiritually insulated. So let's just look into what that means and what it looks like in society and what it looks like in our lives as Hebrew Israelites, what it looks like in our lives personally, and how it translates into society and how we interact within society.
Right. So as she was speaking, she hit some very key points. Let us look into it to see how it actually contributes to our lives. I was born within a community named the Hebrew Israelite community, or the Village of Peace. And this community developed in the early 1970s. Precisely 1969 was the year they actually came to the land of Israel. The whole idea was to bring themselves from America to the land of Israel and present a new idea to their children. I just so happened to be one of the children. This new idea was to eradicate all other ideologies from the external world and for them to indoctrinate us with the idea of the Genesis according to their intentions at the time. Little did they know that this was going to be the beginning stage of religious isolation.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you say that your parents and the leaders of the community had an idea to indoctrinate you all from the idea of the Genesis, can you be more specific or expound on what that means for people who may not understand the Genesis? What Genesis are you talking about? And what do you mean when you say they wanted to indoctrinate you on the idea of the Genesis?
Excellent question. What I meant is exactly what I meant. However, I'm going to elaborate on it. I meant by, in the beginning, the Genesis idea, when Yah's intention was to create and to focus only on creating life, that was to say that when Yah created the garden, everything was good in it. However, Yah gave us one rule in the beginning, is to stay away from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. However, the fall of Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, came about because Yah told us what not to do. However, Adam and Chava didn't know the how and the why they were not doing it. That, in a way, can be seen as religious isolation. Now, that's my answer to my wife question. The leaders in the community, the leaders in the community, they was giving us the information so that we can follow instructions the way Yah wanted Adam and Chava to follow instructions, however, with no questions.
So, what you're saying is, and we want to stay on topic, we're talking about religious isolation versus spiritual insulation. So, what you're saying is, you were born in a community, the Hebrew Israelite community of Dimona, that's where you're from, where you were born. Your parents left America. The leader of the community, Ben-Ami, all decided that, hey, we want to go and we want to create a new world. We want to create a village of peace, so to speak, or an isolated community where we will create this sort of utopian like setting,
Definitely
right?
a utopia.
Or as they say, paradise on
Paradise
earth,
on
right?
earth.
So they wanted to create this setting where they would kind of push the reset button and start all over from the beginning, or what it would appear to kind of mimic the beginning. So in this setting, in your community, you all were like supposed to be like what, Adam and Eve, in the sense that you didn't have the knowledge of the tree of good and evil.
In the sense of, we weren't called Adam and Eve, we were called the sacred seed. The definition of the sacred seed is to present a seed that was non-contaminated by the evilness of this world. Why is that? The devil deceived the whole world. The devil deceived the whole world. And so our parents' intentions were to isolate us from this world and to create a new paradigm, a paradise on earth, as we call it. And so therefore, there were these factions that they created, which was the YOM, the acronyms of Youth on the Move. And then they created another acronym called CFF, which is Chosen First Fruit. These are considered the young adults after they then graduated out of YOM, Youth on the Move. And then from there, that faction, they went into creating other factions and entities such as Men and Women of Valor, who carry out what the Crown Brothers and the Crown Sisters would like them to carry out, in which that faction carry out what the ministers would like them to carry out. And the ministers is carrying out what the princes or the Nisichim would like them to carry out.
So what you're saying is, in this isolated, highly religious environment, and let's define, before I go on, let's define what is a religious isolation. My definition of a religious isolation would be whatever belief system you're in, whether you're Christian, whether you're Islam, whether you're Jewish, you're in this highly religious community or society where there is no individual thought process. There are no individual beliefs. You're told what to think. You're told what to say. You're told what to speak. You're told how to act and how to do according to the doctrine.
Right.
So and anything outside of that religious teaching was taboo. Any people that weren't from your religious community, any people that weren't from your doctrine that you were growing up in, they were sort of like, there was a wall. Right. So there was a divide between you and your religious isolation and the outside world.
Exactly.
Which is sort of a parallel to the Bereshit of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So when we talk about the beginning, that can be sort of an example of this religious isolation, whereas Adam and Eve, they were in the Garden of Eden. They were isolated. They were guarded because they had to be in an environment where they could be cast out of.
Right.
So they were in a guarded environment,
Mm-hmm.
but they still fell because the evil came from
Within.
within.
That's
So,
right.
and we're going to go over how we can compare that to Yeshua
Mm-hmm.
being in the wilderness
Exactly.
and being in this sort of non-protected environment where it's
Right.
very hostile. What do you have in the wilderness? Wild animals, scorpions, whatever, hot sun,
Mhm.
hunger, there's no water, whatever. This
Wolves.
this environment, this wilderness environment where he wasn't physically protected.
Mhm.
However, he had spiritual
Insulation. Mhm.
that ultimately protected him from giving in to the temptations of the adversary, whereas Adam and Eve in
Right.
this sort of paradise,
In
they
this-
fell
Right, they fell.
when it came to temptation.
Yeah, see, the beauty.
So let me ask you this question.
Go ahead. Ask me this
'cause-
question.
Because it's about to get fun.
It's about to get very
'Cause
fun.
you know I like to push the boundaries.
Because I was just
So-
excited about one statement. See, when you mentioned Yeshua, we weren't really taught the in-depth essence of Yeshua within the community that I was born in, which is, once again, religious isolation. Okay? Now, we like to claim that we are a spiritual community, you see, and not a religious community. However, when it becomes very, very pressured upon the people to put on their fringes and quarter blue, if not, there's this heavily consequence or penalty that is going to apply on you. See, when Yeshua was in the wilderness, after he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, the adversary came to him and attempted to tempt him with stones, saying that I can change these stones into bread and this can be yours. Yeshua rejected him. After that, the devil took him above to the pinnacle of this mountain and said, look down. You see all of that? All that you see, it can be yours. Yeshua rejected it. Last but not least, the devil said, the adversary said, Satan said, bow down before me and you can have everything that you ever desire. That was the ultimate goal of the devil, is to receive Yeshua's compliance. His compliance for him to be bounded before him. But see what Yeshua did do. He came to us as his people, as the people of Yah, and he shared with us all of the proper methods and how to be spiritually insulated and why to be spiritually insulated. That's the beauty of spiritual insulation versus religious isolation. That's the difference.
So let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
When it comes to the environment or the community that you came from, the ultimate question that we would all ask, that would be common sense, is, did it work? Did the vision of the 45-second
The
vision?
45-second
Okay,
vision.
the 45-second vision that the leader of the community, Ben-Ami, or as they call him, Ben-Ami HaMashiach, the vision of the community in this sort of environment of religious isolation, did it work as far as the environment standing, and not only standing, progressing? And did it work within what you see as your peers growing up and coming out of the environment and creating their own families did the thought process of this utopia, do you believe it worked?
See, I can give a couple of answers. I can give an answer based on representing a stance of the religious isolation idea, as in, this is my community, and so I choose or I decide to be biased, or I can give an answer based on simply being spiritually insulated, knowing that I am only here today because of the word of Yah, and because Yah saved me, and because Yah redeemed me from the struggles that I was experiencing personally. So, according to this vision, my wife is asking me, did Bena Ami, as they claim, Hamashiach, or Abba Gadol, as I still hear till this very moment, brothers in their 60s and their 70s and their 80s and in their 50s saying that he's their Abba Gadol? Well, according to my observations and according to facts, I would say the fruit fall not too far from the tree. Meaning, me being personally outside, going to and fro, and seeing a lot of our youth, or men and women, who are doped up on drugs, street drugs, who are walking around with no shoes, who barely can express themselves, or who barely can articulate themselves, not knowing that articulation bring forth the audience or a listening ear. They can barely do that. I'm 34 years of age, and I have yet to meet several of the brothers or the sisters that I was raised with who can articulate themselves, who can express themselves, who can set goals and plan and execute. And if there are very few, it's a minority. So the answer must be the vision did not work, because you cannot say the vision did work because you see people around. It's not about the physical beings who are walking around. It's about what's inside of them physical beings that's walking around. Do they have the ability to express the words when they receive the words, which is spirit? In the beginning was the word is with Yah, and the word is Yah? Or are they censored by words and terminologies by what they may define as the chief scribe? That's a good question.
So, what I hear you saying is, and I want to be clear, and then I'm going to give my opinion.
Go ahead.
You don't believe that it worked, the vision that they set out to solidify according to this community that they put together. You don't believe that the vision worked according to you seeing the outcome around you. And we're talking about as a whole, because we don't want to say that well, I'm going to speak for myself. There are people in the Hebrew Israelite community who have opened businesses, who have become successful, who have went to college, who have graduated, who have created lives and families, and have really shined and have really thrived despite the beginning stages of a very tough background. But as a whole, I personally don't think that the vision has come to fruition that they would, in the way that they would have liked. Just seeing the state of our peers, a lot of our peers, and the state of a lot of the youth coming out of the community, with no belief system, with they don't even know. Forget Yeshua HaMashiach. Because when it comes to the community, also Yeshua is a taboo. Because yes, Ben-Ami wrote about Yeshua being the Messiah in many of his books that we have right behind us. He wrote about Yeshua being the Messiah. However,
Right here. Go ahead.
According to the when you talk about people from the community,
Right.
it's like they're very timid and afraid and rejecting of Yeshua as the Messiah. And a lot of them will say outright that Ben-Ami is
The
their
Messiah.
Messiah. So they would refer to him as Ben-Ami HaMashiach.
Exactly.
And one thing I've read several of these books, Yeshua the Hebrew Messiah or Jesus the Christian Christ. This is one of the first books that my husband introduced me to before we were married. When we were in our courting stage, he said,
Exactly.
have you heard of this book? This is a book that the Leader Rock community. I said, okay, I'll read it with you. So this is one of the books the very first book that my husband and I read together. At that time, I was in college and I am a scholar, and I do like to think of myself as someone who's academically inclined. And so I noticed back then, not now, my husband struggled through the book.
I did.
a lot of the things I didn't come from this community, but a lot of the things I wind up having to explain to him what it meant. And there were so many undertones and subtleties in the book that I didn't agree with. But there's one thing that I did agree with, and it's a very known saying.
And even this right here.
Yes, we also read The Messiah and the End of the World, but there's a very known saying, right?
Yeah.
In the community that I guess the leader of the community would often say is truth has the inherent power to produce the promised effect. 100%. So when we ask this question,
right,
did it work?
We must answer it frankly.
Did the vision produce the promised effect that they wanted to produce? As we look around the Hebrew Israelite community, as we look at the lives, the individual lives of the Hebrews, and as we look at how they carry themselves throughout society, the word of Yah says that we should go out and shine our light to all the world. And my opinion is, it did not produce the promised effect. I don't think that it produced what they wanted it to produce.
We wanted it to produce the promised effect. However, when I read for myself and I began to apply value on education, because as you know, that's something that I did not apply value on, which is education. So I had none of the Ben-Ami series, which they call the Resurrection series. And slowly but surely, I began to branch off into purchasing other scholars' books within the community, such as Shemaya Eshet Eliakim. May she rest in peace. About a week ago, she made transition. May Yah redeem her soul. And so what we're saying is, what I'm saying is, within this book, I found out that there is a digit, a code that this whole community is established within. And that code or digit is 317. And so based on that agreement of understanding between the community and the Israeli government, well, that was a compromise. It was a compromise based on the flexibility of the leadership then, which is we would like to receive governmental assistance, which is Bituach Leumi, national insurance. We would like to have the access to Kupot Cholim, which is local clinics in case our children get sick. And I believe it was a compromise because in the beginning, when we did want them services, right, we were rejected from them services. So the adversity compelled us, or should I say, inspired us as a people here in the land, which is persona non grata with everyone around us. Okay, we were compelled or inspired to create our own ministry of health. our own Ministry of Information, our own entities that could have us thriving as a nation. And we were supposed to be the model to all African Americans around the world. Now, why did I say African Americans initially? I said that term or that phrase to connect with you. However, our true identity is Hebrew Israelites. So this Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona is really supposed to be a Hebrew Israelite nation. That means the objective was to bring forth all African Americans to the land of Israel. Why? Because according to Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, we are the only people that can be identified by what took place in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. But in this book, when they address that an agreement of understanding was offered or given, a part of that offer or that compromise was, we're going to give you this government assistance under one term. That term is, do not bring no more followers to this land of Israel. So therefore, the vision was contaminated at that very moment. And that's truth, having the inherent power to produce the promised effect.
So, as my husband was saying, very long-winded, I might add. As my husband was saying, we're on the same page as far as
truth.
You can't really look at the community as a whole and knowing personally, up close and personal, families and people in the community, and understanding how the community operates as far as protocol and procedure, and say the vision has come to pass. And I think that we as Hebrews have a long way to go, which leads us into the spiritual insulation.
Mm-hmm.
So we've defined what the religious isolation is, right? And we come to a point where we say, hey, some of us may come to a point where we would say, something's going on here. This community that I'm a part of is not allowing me to grow. It's not allowing me to express myself and what I believe and what I feel, and even ask questions about the doctrine that I'm being taught. And so a lot of people emotionally or spiritually or psychologically, they fall away from that doctrine. But where do they end up? Do they end up in a place of isolation with Yah, which is a spiritual insulation? Do they end up creating a personal relationship with Yah?
That's a good question.
Or hold on, or do they just go astray and fall by the wayside out there? And I think I will give my opinion. Now, for me, I came from a completely different background from my husband. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, born at Jackson Park Hospital. I'm truly a south side of Chicago girl. All of my life, though, I've been in church, whether it was my mother's side of the family, which was heavily Baptist, missionary Baptist. My great-grandmother went to West Point Missionary Baptist Church for almost all of her life until she couldn't physically walk anymore to go. All of my life on my mother's side of the family, I grew up in a Baptist church. So I was very close to the word. And then on my father's side of the family, all of my life, for as far as I could remember, I grew up Catholic, which is weird, right? You're black. It was always weird to me to be a black girl going to a Catholic church on the south side of Chicago, because even though I have this sort of religious upbringing of understanding the doctrine and the scriptures and the word of Yah, inside of my families, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still have to go out there, go to school, walk home from school, be in that Chicago environment, which, baby, it's not a joke.
As they call it, the concrete jungle. Why do they call it the concrete jungle?
It's not because, first of all, it's the city life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it refers to the grittiness and the griminess. Just you in the streets. This is the city life. It's industrialized, and when we go back and we talk about, I'm someone who knows my history. So during the Great Migration, a lot of men from the South or families were making the move from the South to the North.
Mm-hmm.
For these sort of industrialized jobs and the promise of better jobs and better lives, and the labor force was opening up, and a lot of black men, they left the South in order to find a better life for their families. They had wives and children that they may have left in the South and promised to come back and get them. And so that's a big part of my story. My great grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
he left the South. He went to Chicago to find work, looking for work, and he told my great grandmother, Arlena Sims, that he was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be one of those grandchildren, great grandchildren, that was close to grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Like as close as I am right here to you right now.
Right. That's how close you was to your grandma.
My great grandmother, yeah, because I was one of those kids that at a certain point in my
very
life,
inquisitive.
And at a certain point in my life,
Mm-hmm.
my mother had dropped me off. So I lived with my great grandmother from I would say 4th or 5th grade to 8th grade.
How was that like for you?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that time because, like I said, I got the chance to be with a generation, which is my great grandmother, that had so much wisdom. But beyond that, this was a woman who had 14, 15 children with my great grandfather, and she was a hardworking woman, and she was a believing woman.
Okay.
She believed in Yah.
She was falling asleep with that Bible on her lap, huh?
She knew Yah. Every day when you know this story, every day when I came home from school, my grandmother would be sleep in a chair. She'd be asleep right here, and she had the Bible on her knee, right? Yeah. And I remember one time I came in the house and I slammed the door, and the Bible fell off her knee. And she woke up. She said, "Oh, the devil tried it today. Where my Bible at?" Because she had these big plump legs, and the Bible had fell off her knee. But back to what I was saying. So the black men, my great grandfather, he actually came back to get my great grandmother from the South. Okay. And I was this close. I could remember 7 and 8 years old, and 9 even, when I was always inquisitive, asking my grandmother these questions. And I said, "Grandma, how did we get here?" And she would tell me about how she was a sharecropper, how she picked cotton in the South, and how when great granddaddy left her with my oldest great uncle, which was Noah. We call him OB. And how she was young then. And I said, "Grandma," I could remember asking her, I said, "Grandma, what if granddaddy never came back? What was you gonna do?" She looked at me and she said, "I worked. I was gonna keep on working." Because at the time she was doing nursing, and she was, maybe sharecropping. She did work. My grandmother was a working woman, but she waited. And my great grandfather did come back. One of the few men, because a lot of black men those days, they hoped to find a better life in the North. And I think once they got to the North, they just got caught up in the system. And a lot of them never went back for their families. And a lot of them never went back for their wives and for their children. And great granddaddy, he came back for grandmother and purchased her a house. And eventually we were one of the first black families to own a home on 73rd and Paxton, which was the South Shore area at the time, on the south side of Chicago, which that area was heavily known to be a white influential area. So we were one of the first black families on that block to own a property, 7333 South Paxton. And so coincidentally about my life, right, I grew up with my great grandmother Baptist. My father, this is how my father and my mother met. My father lived across the street on the same block, Paxton. Right. A few houses down. And so teenagers love
Young
it,
love.
young
Okay.
love, and they wind up having me,
Okay.
out of wedlock.
Wow.
And so
Mm.
that's how our families wind up coming together. So in that time where my mother had left me to live with my great grandmother, right? I'm in 5th grade now, and I'm grown up a little bit. I would sometimes walk down the street and cross over on Paxton and go
Okay.
to my father's mother house,
Okay.
where I lived in Chicago, but for a long time I had structure.
Okay.
I was either going to Wednesday night Bible study at St. Philip Neri, which was a
Okay.
Catholic church.
All right.
I was going to Sunday school with my grandmother at St. Philip Neri, which was a Catholic church. And then sometimes one of my other family members from my mother's side of the family, I would maybe go to church with them, to a Baptist church. And I was so scared. Like I was, whenever I
What you was scared of?
The environment of, when we were talking about religious isolation, the identity and the environment of the Catholic Church. As a little Black girl on the south side of Chicago, when I stepped into the Catholic Church, I didn't see me. Not only did I not see me, and when I say I didn't see me, there was like always white figures and white Jesuses everywhere, and there was just, it didn't feel welcome to me. And not only that, I don't know if you ever been inside of a Catholic church. It was always dimly lit, and it was always this spooky, eerie feeling.
Okay.
And when you walked in, you had the holy water right here at the door.
And so you feel religiously isolated at that moment? You just wasn't conscious that that's what you was actually experiencing?
At the moment, I didn't feel religiously isolated. However, I felt like I was being groomed to be in a system that I knew I didn't fit into. That young, I knew I was never comfortable in a Catholic church. So I began to wonder a lot. Okay. Even though I was hearing mass, we would go to mass, and I would hear sermons, and I would kind of start to compare how the white priest would preach his sermons, and how I would hear mass, yeah. Okay. And how I would hear the Black pastors preach the sermons. Okay. And so
Baptist versus Catholic.
Yes, and so I had that to compare, right?
Okay.
And then I had this whole other world outside of the church, right? Okay, that was Chicago. So, but at that point in my life, I knew as a young girl, I said, this is not for me. I don't like this feeling that I feel when I come in here. There were always these fake smiles from the priest. Like they would look at you, but the eyes said something different. The eyes said, I'm superior to you. And I didn't like that feeling. And this is how mass went. The priest would walk in, and he had that thing swinging the incense. Wow. And then when he walked down the aisle, everyone would kneel. So we'd always have these leather roller things that would roll out, that everyone had to kneel when he's walking down. And then we would have to say, Father, peace be unto you, to the priest. And I didn't like it. It felt like this guy. No, it felt like this guy thinks he's God. Okay.
And you was very uncomfortable with the idea that a man think he's God?
I was uncomfortable with the whole situation because in my great grandmother's house, we had a family Bible. Okay. And from the South,
a lot of was the Bible and not a man. When you was actually studying with your grandmother.
In my grandmother's house, we had a family Bible. Right. And in that family Bible, we had a Black Jesus.
Oh. Man, as y'all can see, hey.
So my husband thought. Let me clarify something, because my husband thought that Black people, and I was heavily offended, because you actually see Africans, Ethiopians, Sudanese, Eritreans. Hold on, let me talk. That they actually worship these white images. Like you go in their houses. Right, right. And I had to explain to my husband, honey, a lot of us Black Americans, we did not worship those white images.
Right, that ain't so.
We may have found them in some churches, right? But many of us had Black Jesus on our wall in our house.
And even if they did see him on the wall, that's not what they believed in. Even if they did see
what?
the white Jesuses on them walls, that didn't necessarily mean that they believed in that white
where
Jesus.
I came from,
They were spiritually insulated.
Where I came from, and I could take you back to my childhood, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, because a lot of us grew up the same. A lot of us had big mamas in our family and grandmas and great grandmas back then, and we would come to school and tell our stories because a lot of us had some similar stories. And without a doubt, you would not hear a black kid from the south side of Chicago say that they believe Jesus is white. We didn't have that mindset. I can say hands down.
I would like to ask you this. Why is the topic is taboo about Yeshua being a black man and versus Jesus being a white man and a total myth? It's extremely taboo, even in America and here, according to my personal observation. As in, I'm aware that the pastors over there in America, they're being funded by 501c3, however they call that, and they are compelled to keep silence about this information. However, why they don't conjure up the courage and speak about the topic and just believe and know that they would be spiritually insulated?
Okay, then let me answer that. Before I answer that, I'm gonna hold on to that. But before I answer that, I want to wrap up this little story because I was going somewhere.
Okay.
As a black girl growing up on the south side of Chicago, having this religious experience within my family and knowing that this is a rough city, you got gang violence, you got all type of things going on, robberies and all this. Because I was exposed to the word of Yah, and because I was just in those places, even though I may not have liked, as much as I didn't like going to Catholic church and Toda Yah, nothing ever happened to me as far as stories about priests touching children or molesting children in the wrong way. I was spiritually insulated, which I think is a big part of my journey because I knew this white man is not Yah. And I could remember my grandmother scolding or not scolding or correcting one of my aunties because one of my little cousins who did go to a black church, she idolized their pastor so much that my grandmother told my aunt, she said, listen here, you need to teach her better than that. You need to teach her that that man up there in that pulpit is not God. And so my grandmother was always so serious about knowing the difference between a man who is delivering you the message and having a personal relationship with the Most High. And so that's how me growing up as a little black girl in the south side of Chicago, I was spiritually insulated. That doesn't mean that I didn't make mistakes and do crazy stuff, but I always had this word and this foundation that was in me to hold on to. And I had a great grandmother who I was just absorbing so much information from her. I was blessed to even have her for the years that I did have her. Regardless, I didn't understand it as a child, and I would cry and say, I want to go with my mama. When is my mama coming to get me? I'll cry. But as an adult, I'm like, wow, I had so much knowledge that she had passed on to me, so much wisdom. My grandmother was a very soft-spoken woman. You would never catch her really hollering. She didn't curse. The most closest she would come to a curse word is "God dong it," and you know. So that was my experience. I was very spiritually insulated, whereas I had the substance and the word of Yah in me that walking out on those streets in Chicago, even though I'm in the midst of a hostile environment, the spirit of Yah protected me where I had this sort of wisdom that a lot of people may not have had if they weren't exposed to the word of Yah and they didn't have that belief system in them. And so now to answer your question, why is it so taboo to talk about black Yeshua being a black man and Jesus, this character that they made up, Jesus the Christian Christ, which they put a white image on it, right? So you want to know why is it so taboo to talk about it?
Share your opinions, share your beliefs, share your thoughts.
According to what I've lived, I want to tell you that it's only taboo to talk about it when you're trying to be politically correct or when you are in white spaces. Say you work in an office or you're doing some sort of business or you're out in society where you're in white spaces. Maybe you're in downtown Chicago or you're around European people. That's when it becomes taboo. But remember I told you that there were pros and cons in growing up in the hood. Because as growing up in the hood, you saw all black faces around you.
That's beautiful.
You didn't have this pressure of being something that you're not, or trying to fit into a European standard.
Exactly.
Or you could just be confident walking down the street. Breathe.
Just breathe. You could just
breath of life. You could just be confident walking down the street in your skin, and that in itself gave you confidence.
Hello.
So I had so much confidence as a black girl on the south side of Chicago that when I would come in contact with maybe some of my cousins or people who were in mixed environments, I noticed that black people who were in mixed environments or grew up in predominantly white environments were less confident in their blackness.
Right.
They were always trying to fit in.
Identity crisis.
Yes, they were always trying to fit in. And me, coming on from the south side of Chicago, I was very confident. So you got to ask yourself, what spaces are we having this conversation in?
Which environment?
And I want to make a distinction.
Go ahead.
You know how they say black Twitter?
All right.
Black Twitter. Okay, Twitter. You got Twitter. It's a social media.
You tweet
but you got black Twitter, which is there are certain unspoken things or innuendos that only black people understand, or inside jokes, right? Yeah. So then in the hood, we had black church.
Black church.
We have Catholic church.
They have black church.
We have black church.
I said they.
Let me talk, honey. Let me answer your question, man. Hold on. We have black church because I'm answering your question. I want to make sure that you hear me.
All right, go ahead. It's still on.
So, in having,
you wasn't supposed to push it. You wasn't.
No, my mic is
now it's on.
So, in having black church, right? The pastors, they wouldn't shy away from. I've never heard a pastor shy away from telling the truth that Yeshua was a black man.
Okay.
Never.
All right.
Okay.
So that's the answer.
That's part of the answer.
Okay, part of the answer.
Once we got into an age of political correctness, some of those black pastors started to shy away and give this sort of sermon of, and it doesn't matter what color Jesus was.
Oh, it matters,
you know what I'm saying? But growing up, we had black church, we had Lion of Judah or black images of Yeshua on our wall. We didn't have white Jesus in our houses. And we had, some of them probably still have it. We had a family Bible. My grandmother had a family Bible that had, you open it up, it was a big Bible. This was a family Bible because back in the day, you would record birth registries and people's names in the Bible too. Whoever was born, that was in the Bible. And so we'd have family Bibles, and my grandma had this family Bible where there was a black Jesus. And I remember the first time I'm seeing it, and that was all I remembered growing up. Like, so maybe that scared me too, going into the Catholic church and then seeing this whole other image that I wasn't really like in a home setting. It was like we knew we were living in two different worlds. We knew there was a possibility of us seeing a white Jesus in a Catholic church or a Baptist church. But in a lot of our homes, we knew black Jesus. We knew Yeshua was a black man.
Should we say
not black
Yeshua?
Jesus, but
Yeshua, period.
You know what I mean.
Yeah,
okay, let's not get into
let me give a background about my
let me finish, because there's different language. So if I say black Jesus, right? Me and you know that Yeshua was a black man. But I'm also speaking for those people who are not, didn't come from the Hebrew Israelite community and not trying to prove that they scholars that's how we said it. We knew Yeshua.
So speak to them.
We-
Let them know what's the distinct difference between black Yeshua and white Jesus, because there can never be a black Jesus, because the essence of the terminology Jesus was applied to the white face.
So what my husband is saying is that
It's very important.
what my husband is saying
We
that
can relate to y'all, but
Well,
now
hold
we
on.
growing from here.
hold on. What my husband is saying
Just
is that
sharing. Yeah.
Yeshua is the correct name
Of Yeshua.
of the Messiah.
Yes.
And Jesus was a made up name, a derivative of them stripping his identity and his culture away from him so that you would never even be able to know his correct name. And we did our
And
research
apply it to the white face. So
and
you
also
can-
applied it to apply a European face to
Right.
it. So a lot of times when this conversation comes up, mainly white people, you'll hear them say, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter."
It matters
Well,
so
if
much.
it doesn't matter, then they wouldn't have painted
Deflected.
a European face on it. If it didn't matter,
Mhm.
they would have just left it at Jesus and not had a face to it. They would have done that
Mhm.
if it didn't matter. So it definitely matters. But I wanted to make a point to say, because I was highly offended. Like, let's be real. In the beginning of our marriage, my husband was so rah kingdom. I guess the doctrine that you had been taught in the kingdom was
I would
that
like to share. Hold your thought for 1 second. I was just about to share with her, because I told her a lot about what I didn't have. I don't always share with her about what I did have, because maybe what I did have didn't cause a great impact on me. And I may have thought of it as such a small thing. Okay? So to see it from this perspective, I did go to Shabbat Seders several times with my Abba. I remember him and us getting dressed and going way on the walk from Shoham 45 in Arad to Shabbat Seder at number 7. I remember going with him to Shabbat Seder in Dimona, or to several of the holy congregations, as they call them, on certain holy days, such as Passover or Feast of Tabernacles and certain things. However, when I used to go up there, I believe I used to take a lot of things for granted. Okay, a lot of the truth that they was sharing for granted, and I believe a lot of my generation did take it for granted. Okay, because my wife always asked, why and how come you didn't know? Well, there were moments my parents shared certain information with us, and we should have applied value to them. I'm gonna speak in I statements, because you have several people who may took that information and ran with it. Okay, however, they may have understood the psychology of valuing all information and using it for what they want to use it for, so they won't end up in a psychiatric ward. However, when it came to me personally, I had a difficulty in retaining information that could have been used for value in my life. Okay, that was one of my struggles. And had I would have applied value on certain information, I may have not experienced what it was like to experience going into the hospital when I did go into the hospital at the age of 18. Because I would have taken the information that they have shared with me, and I would have studied it for myself, such as I would have obtained a Bible and I would have opened it for myself with my own passion and with my own will to dig deep for it. However, I wasn't experiencing nothing like that.
That's it.
Let me finish this.
Go ahead.
Now, when my Abba, my father, was sharing information with us, I was sitting there trying to be a nice guy. However, nice doesn't mean you kind, and it doesn't mean you always attentive. Nice simply nice is a terminology that can be used to be deceiving other people just to give them the appearance that you giving them what they want. And so that's the type of child and the type of student that I was. I didn't want to offend no one. I didn't want to disappoint no one. So within the community that I was raised in, when they see me walking to and fro, it's not like they can come and say, come here, man, let me whoop your taque, because I was always putting on an appearance of being nice to everyone. But by default, I was experiencing a lot of trauma by trying to please everybody.
Okay. So what you're saying is, so
yes, there was truth that was being shared.
So,
but when I say truth, I mean all of the information that you say where it wasn't given. I must admit that it was information being given. Like a lot of these books was produced, but I never studied for myself. You understand?
So when you say, because for me, there's only one most important thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is either you believe in Yeshua or you don't.
Oh, so man, I didn't even know Yeshua.
You say, so that's what I'm coming to, right? So see, this is what I'm coming to. So if you say, oh, if I would have just been a child that valued what was given to me, then maybe this wouldn't have happened to me and I would have had the information. But then what was being given to you was their own doctrine. They weren't.
Hold on, I didn't know, as I said. How about I probably learned about Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Christ. However, everything that was shared went in one ear and out the other. How about I went into the streets, because, you know, we grew up without a framework. You know, there was attempts to give us a framework, at least my personal family. However, my older brother, he was going out into the streets due to his trauma, and I was following him. So we didn't experience what it was like to actually know the value of a book.
Okay, but I'm saying is this, honey. This is the book, Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Christ. And here's
and also the rise of the Messiah in the end of this world.
Okay, we ain't talking about that right now. Okay, we ain't about to start.
No, I get what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is, you're saying, had you been a child that would have paid more attention and appreciated what you had
and retained what
you had, then maybe you would have made some different choices in your life. But what I'm saying, I don't necessarily agree with that. That's what I'm saying, and it's okay. I don't always agree with my husband.
You don't have to agree with
me.
But
what I'm saying is, they might have gave you Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Christ, and had the knowledge that, okay, Yeshua is his Hebrew name. But we're talking about the culture of the community. The culture of the community is that they do not believe Yeshua is the Christ or the Messiah.
Can I touch that sentence that you just shared?
Wait. I'm almost done. Okay. I'm almost done. Mm-hmm. The culture of the community is that Ben-Ami, is what they call him, Ben-Ami HaMashiach, was their Christ and their Messiah. So even if you were that child that would have sat down and paid attention to what they were telling you, you would still have been confused, and which is what I see in a lot of.
I would like to stop.
I'm almost done.
Hold on, wait.
Let me finish my sentence.
Go ahead.
Which is what I see in a lot of your peers who are born and raised in the Hebrew Israelite community. Psychologically, they're confused because they experienced the doctrine that acknowledged Yeshua as the Messiah, but they lived in a community that acknowledged Ben-Ami as the Messiah. So it's like their foundation, to me, in my opinion, was faulty.
So let me help. Let me help you understand me. Allow me to help you understand me. When I said I didn't say just listen to them. I said I would have done my research and opened it for myself. And let me tell you how it would have changed me. I'm gonna tell you how it would have changed me, because I deliberately borrowed this book from Avishadai Ben Coin Elamad at that time. This one is a brand new book that I purchased for our family. Now, when I was reading this, and he said, brother, I encourage you to read it. When I read this, and I was to and fro on the bus to Tel Aviv, Dimona, when I was working, rolling the gospel at that moment. I gained so much insight. I deliberately found out that he was not the Mashiach because he is telling you who the Mashiach is in here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was trying to share with you. Had I,
Wait,
no,
calm down.
I'm
Calm
just
down.
a bit passionate.
Yeah, you're doing a lot.
Had I would have been passionate and young, zealed, and thirsty for the truth, as my brother Abishadai ben Kohen Elamah shared within his little pamphlet up there. This right here solidified to each and every one of Ben Ami, Ben Israel, or should I say Ben Carter followers to stand firm and knowing that the Messiah that y'all claim was here 2,000 years ago, his spirit is still alive. Because when I had a conversation with you on the train, minister brother, or with you, crown brother, y'all mentioned, why should we believe in a man that was here 2,000 years ago? I say because the man that you believe in right now, he wrote it in his book, the Messiah and the End of This World. That means Yeshua's spirit is going to still be alive. And all this world, this whole world that we living in is chaotic and of the devil. That's why we are in this world and not of this world. And you cannot walk this planet Earth without having Yeshua HaMashiach within embedded in your soul.
Well, let me just say this, because the Bible says unless two I got it, honey.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says unless two are in agreement, we cannot walk together or be on the same accord.
Right.
Now, as far as the foundation in this household, we believe in Yeshua HaMashiach in this household.
100%.
However, I just wanted to point out that you made a statement that, I didn't really agree with, saying that if you would have studied this for yourself, because we want to take what we say and we want to put it in real life.
Not just this. I mentioned this. I mentioned the Holy Bible. I mentioned basically being a scholar and actually valuing information, or should I say wisdom, that would help feed my soul.
Maybe
I had a less value on education at that moment, and I was in the streets.
Maybe that's true.
Yeah.
For my husband. But when we look at the community as a whole, there are a lot of people that read these books. There are a lot of people that, hold on, wait a minute. You do. You know a lot of them that said, the dog, I'm reading the Messiah and the End of This World, man, bro. So let's be real on this camera.
I mentioned that I didn't know a lot of people. I may know
No, listen. You have come in contact with different brothers from the community.
Who read it.
Who have met, it doesn't matter.
It may be my about with one on his bookshelf.
Nadab, I don't want to name people on camera, okay?
Yeah.
But there have been a few people, Hebrews, brothers, that you've had conversations with that are so rah-rah about Ben Ami's books, and you're not seeing the product of believing in Yeshua, because there is a distinct difference between them reading this
and actually believing.
Because what I'm saying, what I'm pinpointing is the community culture doesn't allow for you to really believe in Yeshua.
I agree with what she's saying.
It doesn't allow, because
I agree with what she's
you have to pledge allegiance to Ben Ami and be all about Ben Ami. When we even go back to the marriage of the Lamb, back in the day, they were basically marrying themselves to the idea of Ben Ami.
Right, Ben Ami just picked himself as the lamb when they was marrying the lamb. I never personally married the lamb in the aspect of me getting all dressed up in white and going out there to a ceremony and kneeling to Ben Ami. I never personally had a one-on-one contact with him. The only contact that I did have with him was when I was graduating from 8th grade to 9th grade, and my grandmother, she asked for permission from him to take a picture with me. But that picture never showed up because the one who took it claimed that they lost it or they can't find it.
So
and maybe that was for a reason.
That And that's my husband's belief. He believed that if he had read these books for himself, that somehow he would have come in contact with believing in Yeshua and knowing about Yeshua.
Yeah.
However, that hasn't proved to be true for many of your peers
That's a
from the
fact.
same
That's
community. So I
100%
don't
a
know
fact.
how much we can say that, but because we
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Yeah,
And I'm
100%.
speaking, and I don't want y'all to think that I'm bashing, but we have to have real conversations.
No, this is a frank
And
conversation.
I'm
100%.
speaking as someone who was not born and raised in the Hebrew Israelite community, who married a man who was born and raised in the Hebrew Israelite community, and we're from two separately, totally different environments, worlds, and I can just say that us being married 8 years this year is a
In
testimony
December.
in itself, because I would say the first 2 years of our marriage were the hardest.
Oh man.
Were extremely, extremely
It was a challenge.
hard, because I was bringing so much knowledge and so much information.
It was blowing my mind.
That my husband just wasn't really versed in, as far as business and as far as education and value in education, and as far as the world,
as far as communication, as far as psychology, sociology,
and most importantly, the Bible.
Yes.
And so we were from two vastly different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to him, and it was almost like we were on the brink of divorce. Like, we could have immediately gotten divorced within the first year that we were married, because my husband, I don't want to say you presented something to me as if you were something that you were not, but I think at the time that I met my husband, he was being curious about Yeshua.
I'm gonna be 100%.
Wait, I'm not finished.
Okay.
I think when I met my husband, you were just being curious about Yeshua, and you were so excited to present your community to me.
Very.
And you didn't even believe in a lot of stuff that you were saying about your community, because it was like a lot of people from the Hebrew Israelite community, like I said, it's like a parrot. A lot of people reiterate what's been indoctrinated in them.
You become robotic.
Right. And so the first book we read was, yes, Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Christ. But if you ask me today, I'll say my husband didn't know what the heck he was reading. And so a lot of those things we had to study together, and I had more knowledge of the scriptures to kind of explain what Ben-Ami was writing. And then I also had to have my opinion of, okay, he's writing this, but I don't agree with this, because there's a subtle undertone in there.
Okay. Can I touch on that? What my wife is saying when she said I didn't know what he was writing about, she's actually zoning in on terminologies. She's zoning in on words, period. And the reason why it was challenging for me to understand a lot of them words is because, once again, my vocabulary, my lexicon was not built to where it's built standing today. Secondly, while she said that there were undertones that she did not agree with, and I found that out later on in life when I read the Revival of the Holy Spirit, and there was this book that was referred to in there by Nigel Pinnock. And to be honest with you, this is that book that Ben-Ami was using. And within here, it said, no man could ever know what you're really talking about, or no man could never really understand you and understand nothing you share with them but the one that's thinking it. And so therefore, this is called Magical Alphabets. And I wanted to purchase this book so I could see what he was using behind the scenes in order to mind control such a large group of people and to have them carrying out certain things for him.
So what my husband is saying, right? And I didn't agree with that either, because you can know what a person is thinking. And it's not like no one can know what a person is thinking, but
Or
the person
meaning.
that's meaning, but the person that said it. That's
Mhm.
not true. I don't believe that's true, because when I read some of Ben books, I would say, I agree with this, but I don't agree with this. And I think when you, like my husband said in the beginning, he didn't have such a understanding of a lot of words and a lot of meanings and terminologies. And when you don't have a broad vocabulary and understand these things, you cannot possibly read with reading comprehension.
Right.
So me coming on as like this woman that he's trying to introduce all these things to, but he doesn't quite understand it
I'm attempting to
himself
impress her.
and trying to impress me. And then I'm
Man.
like, you do understand what you're reading, right?
I'm being
And he's like,
embarrassed because I can't even pronounce a word
so what-
properly.
So what? So what I believe is, if you have true reading comprehension,
Right.
it doesn't matter what you're reading. You will notice certain undertones. You will be able to read between the lines. That's what they mean when they say read between the lines.
Or critical thinking.
Critical thinking skills, which I brought all this to the table.
She did.
And we could have been divorced in our first year of marriage, because I was like expanding his mind to the point of, when you've been in this religiously isolated community, anything outside of that is the devil.
Man.
I remember this.
Yeah. That's what we were taught. Everything outside of this community is the devil. If you go to college or to university, you participating in a devil system.
So
that's what we were taught.
Imagine me and my husband's background and him sharing what he's went through with me. Not with me, but growing up, what he went through as far as going into the hospital for mental illness or things like that, and jumping out, having an accident where he jumped out of the window.
Right. I was on the brink of death at the age of 13.
Imagine someone coming into your life that they're from a whole different world, that your community told you to stay away from that.
Right.
Stay away from those
people. Stay away from them people.
And then I'm bringing
so much truth.
Some different type of thinking tools, like, hey, psychology. What were you feeling when this happened? Do you believe that you are worthy of love? Do you believe that you were surrounded by love? Do you feel that you can accomplish things? Do you feel like you can achieve things? And I was digging so deep into this man who I was doing it before, as we were engaged, because we had a very short engagement, right?
Right, very short.
He knew I was the one.
I proposed to her within the same month.
I didn't know he.
Within the same month.
I didn't know he was the one. Y'all had to tell me that.
I didn't know she was the one. Y'all was just moving me on my body brain. and listen, as y'all can see here, it say Prisoners of Childhood. That was the former name of the Drama of the Gifted Child. So what she was doing was what this lady, Alice Miller, done in here. She was psychoanalyzing me at the moment. And had I know how painful it would have been in being under that type of experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
like literally I cried tears. Snot was coming out my nose.
And that's why
she was peeling that orange.
And that's why I say, like, we really could have been divorced, because in thinking and asking these questions and delving deep into my husband's psyche, into his childhood, into his experiences, into his belief system, and then a person holding so dear to what they've been taught, and then finding that what they've been taught wasn't exactly solid.
It's been programmed. It's been programmed into us.
So it was like we had this terrible argument. It was
challenging.
He was like, Cinca!
You're trying to take everyone that I love away from me.
And I wasn't trying to take everyone that
it was just so painful.
I have never tried to take everyone that he loved away from him. What I wanted him to do was
see truth and see the spirit.
Was to know him and to be okay with speaking his truth.
With knowing me.
There were so many. I had never seen someone embody so much fear.
I was the embodiment of fear.
Imagine, hold on, honey.
Go ahead.
So imagine this woman from the south side of Chicago.
South side of Chicago, where you so afraid to go to, Brother Kananel.
Man, why you gotta copy it?
I watched your video. I couldn't help it but to say it, brother.
Imagine this woman from, and I'm tough. Don't take this face for face
She
value.
got a pretty face, don't she?
From the south side of Chicago, and I'm looking at this man,
Like,
and I'm like, boy, is you crying?
Yeah, I was crying. I was so sensitive. Every time she said a word, my heart just melted.
I'm like,
I'm crying because I love you, and I don't want to. She like, okay. She like, why you so needy? See, I had abandonment issues because my mom and my dad, my Abba and Ima, they separated when I was 8 months. You see, I was only a baby. You know, you mentioned how your Ima set you off at your great grandma's house. So I've experienced basically this, not the same, because I wasn't given to my grandma or my great grandma to be, you know, so it's like, who did I have to look up to? Eventually, a stepmother came into my life, which was very challenging, you know, living with at that time. Now that you know, Dr. McCabe Moore, you know, I'm going to give you a shout out. Now that, hold on, listen. Now that we grown, I got her book right here. Give a shout out to Dr. McCabe Moore and go and purchase her book. All right. Now, it was very challenging to live, you know, with her at the time because she was very firm and solid on truth, and I'm gonna equate her to the principles that my wife like to stand on. Like, she's very passionate and very valiant and very vigorous on fighting for their children. And so what my Ima Makeba realized or was aware of is there was a lot going on in his community. And my Abba, being a men of valor, you know, they had to hold it down. You know, they taking them secrets to the grave with them. And this is something that I personally would not to like to experience, as in, oh, I'm so loyal to the brotherhood where I gotta now hold secrets from my wife. And now, you know, now I gotta come home and she's saying, honey, what's going on? And then in the brotherhood meeting, y'all sharing with us, you know, don't mention this to no one else. This is exclusive information. And now I gotta hold all this contempt and rage and anger towards my wife because she's gonna be probing with questions.
So,
and you see what we saying?
So what we're saying is,
so yes, I had abandonment issues
in the beginning of our marriage.
And so yes, I was needy.
He had come from a community of really religious isolation. Even if you say that because like he's told me his testimony of that, like him and his brothers and sisters were pretty much like outcasts in the community.
Oh yes, we were considered outcasts.
They were participating in every aspect of the community,
right?
But that doctrine was still heavily in them. So now you're married to a woman from the south side of Chicago,
right?
Very goal oriented, very outspoken, very headstrong, very solid on my belief in the Bible.
Knows who she is.
And so the beginning of our first two marriages, first 2 years of our marriage were the toughest.
Man, it was a challenge.
And then I was sharing so much information with him. And let me rewind a little bit. And if someone wants to ask and say, hey, if you all were so different, why'd you marry him? Right. Because I've given this testimony to several people. And I want to give this testimony and say that had it not been for my belief in the Most High, had it not been for my strong prayer life, had it not been for my knowledge in the scriptures and my faith system, I would not have recognized my husband. Some of you sisters, y'all husband that came across y'all path and y'all missed y'all blessing because you were looking for the wrong things. And I was able, my spiritual mother taught me not only how to pray and be a prayer warrior, because it's a way that you can pray to align yourself with Yah's blessings. And you don't, oh yeah, thank you for waking me up this morning. That's baby stuff. And so the way that I was praying, by the time I met my husband, I had left Chicago, I had left Illinois, I moved to Iowa because I got approved for low income. And I was like, look, I got to go where I can keep a roof over my 2 kids' heads. And I don't want them where I grew up. I want to give them a chance in life. Let me go see what this is about. And so right when you're on the cusp of receiving a blessing, the adversary will do something to try to prevent you. So the day that I was supposed to move to Iowa, one of my children's fathers were supposed to drive my U-Haul truck, right? And on the day of me moving, he called me and say, I ain't gonna be able to make it. Now, with low income in Section 8, baby, you better got to go pick up them keys now. When they tell you to come, your apartment is ready, you have to come pick up your keys and come with your security deposit in hand.
Go get them keys.
So I was in a dilemma. I'm a single mother. I have 2 children. I can't miss out. They got my house ready, but it's in Iowa, and I got to get to Iowa to get my keys. And now this man that I was supposed to be depending on to drive my truck, this is where you step out on faith.
Wow.
So what happened was, I called my mama. I said, Mommy, I need you to watch the boys because I need to go settle this thing with the house. They say my house is ready and I got to get out here to Iowa. Can you watch the boys? So my mother and my auntie watched my children while I did what I had never done before. Scariest thing. I'm 20 something years old. I'm a single Black woman. And at that time I was living in the north suburbs. I went to the nearest U-Haul. And I walk into this U-Haul place, and it's this big redneck looking guy with this big beard and with these dicky overalls, just something you would see like, back in the day he would have lynched you. And he's looking at me with these eyes of superiority that they be looking at you with. And I'm like, I'm stepping like I'm that girl. I'm from the south side of Chicago. You can't scare me. So I walk in there and he's like, what can I do for you? And I'm like, I had to go inward. Because remember, y'all was in control of this. I said, sir, I never drove a U-Haul truck before, but I need a truck now. And he said, do you have a driver's license? I said, yes. He took my information. I said, what's the smallest truck that you have? Because I'm not taking a whole bunch of stuff. I had given all of my the big things away that I want to give away. And I just needed the smallest truck, not the little wagon that you pull, but the smallest big truck, okay? And so he told me how much that was going to cost. And he was like, you don't have anybody? And at that moment, I just felt so defeated and so bad. Like, why am I not that girl that can call my father? That's another story for you. Ooh. Why don't I have
that? We gonna talk about that next.
Why don't I have uncles episode that I could call my cousins? All my cousins is out here in the streets. My boy cousins, if they even have a valid driver's license. So the struggle was real. Wow. Like everybody
to have all these male cousins, a father around.
Everybody's life is
baby
not
daddy around
on track where they're in a position to help you. Wow. So I know what it feels like as a Black single woman to really got to do it on your own.
Experience that struggle.
And so when this white man looking at me like, ooh, you don't have an uncle or anyone that can drive the truck for you, and to say no, it hurt me.
I apologize on behalf of the Black man. Wow.
I held it together. Wow. I said, no, but I'm going to do it.
Wow.
And he looked at me. He said, you sure you can do this?
Wow.
I said, I don't have a choice.
Wow.
He could have chose not to rent me the truck.
But you didn't have a choice, but you had a decision.
And Yah
Man, God gave you
was
a
with
decision.
me.
Oh,
And Yah allowed this man to say, he said, I'm going to rent you this truck. And when he rented me the truck, I went to my apartment. I packed everything up. I'm talking about everything. I did put everything in the truck by myself. I had already dropped my children off in Chicago with my mama. Drove back to the north suburbs, packed up my apartment. I'm ready. I'm scared.
She's spiritually insulated.
Spiritual
all of this
insulation.
is defined as spiritual insulation.
Because when you are not protected in an environment where you have to do for self,
Man, say that
you
again.
don't have a religious isolation where
That's supposed to be an umbrella for you.
Where you have somebody to tell you, do this, do that.
Don't do this.
Don't
that's
do that.
all they wanted to do. And
so,
tell us, sit down, shut up, and listen.
And so
that's
now,
it.
So I was so in my element with Yah. And I packed up truck, moved to Iowa, and in that season, I looked to my left, looked to my right, and this is what I'm coming to. I said, never ever am I working at a fast food. There ain't no slight to nobody who work in fast food.
Wow.
I just knew what I wanted because I was so close to Yah at that season. I said, Yah, you told me greater is he that is in me than he who is in the world. So we supposed to speak those things that be not
into existence
as though they were. So I made it across. Because coming out of Illinois, you have to cross the Mississippi River. So I crossed the Mississippi River, and that in itself, with the history of the Mississippi River for Black Americans,
y'all already know that experience.
Something like significant to me. Wow. Like I cried crossing that river. Whew. If you know what that river means to our people coming from the south to the north,
trying to run away from the plantations.
So I went
to the north.
I crossed into Iowa, and it was the scariest thing because I knew I'm crossing into KKK territory. Man. I was one of the most whitest states in America, heavily Republican. Major back roads. Even outside of the main cities of Chicago, there's some eerie back roads.
I experienced the energy when I went to visit
some
her.
of them still have Confederate flags up.
Yes, they do.
So I crossed into Iowa, and I look to my right and I look to my left. I see a hospital. I see Dubuque University. I said, I'm going there. I saw the hospital. I said, I'm going to work there. That was it. I didn't say, yeah, I want to. I said, I'm going to.
Right.
And so
she made a decision where she working at.
I applied, had my transcripts, my college transcripts sent to the university. They saw I had a background. Yes, the girl had some cases, had a criminal background. I wasn't letting that deter me. I wrote a kick butt essay, entrance essay, and the dean of Dubuque University, he reached out. He wanted to interview me personally. So I knew that it was time to play the game, right? I didn't have, at that time, by that time, I had brought the boys. I had got the apartment, got the keys, brought the boys, got accepted to the university. This is a private university. It's not Iowa State University. That's the state university. Dubuque, University of Dubuque is private. And so they had this committee in seeing if they want to allow me entrance into the university because of my background and whatever. So I went to the meeting. And not having a babysitter, I brought my kids with me. I said, okay, y'all want to see who I am?
Tell them what they told you.
I brought my children with me. He asked me about my background, asked me about my goals, my aspirations. I was upfront with him. He said, well, what about your children? At that point, I thought he was delving a little personal, but I've never been ashamed of my background. He said, what about your children's father? Are you all still together? I said, I held the line, though. I've always held the line when it comes to my children's fathers. So I'm not finna sit in front of a white man that's interviewing me to get into school and throw my children's father under the bus.
Right.
So when he asked me, he said, what about your children's father? I smiled at him and I said, oh, they're great. We're best of co-parents. They try their best to be in their children's lives and we co-parent together. However, I'm here aspiring to do something for myself as a single mother who is housing these children on my own. And so the dean, normally you receive an email and they tell you if you've been accepted or if you haven't been accepted. And he shook my hand right then and there. He said, "I'm happy to accept you." Dean shook my hand. He handed me an official acceptance letter in my hand, and then I also received the acceptance email. But got accepted. Got the job I want. And what's so crazy, how I knew that this man was my husband, was because a year before I met this man right here, I was working in the mental health psychiatric ward in the hospital. I had never worked in healthcare ever in my life. I never wanted to be the person to work in healthcare, right? I'm not that person. My husband is the people's person. He's the people's person. He's a peopler.
He takes a lot of energy out of me. He takes a lot of energy out of me.
I wanted to be that person to just do it. My profession, business administration and accounting. I wanted to do the computer stuff. That's what I did, computer stuff. And I was blessed with great jobs as a single mother because I never, I was looking at the money. If you was paying me $15 an hour and up, I was applying for that job. And so when I saw the vacancy at the psychiatric ward for administrative assistant, I said, yeah, I don't know nothing about no healthcare, and I don't know what the psychiatric ward. I'm finna be working with crazy people, and so I didn't know, right?
Okay.
Y'all bless me. Wind up working there. It was so confusing and so draining spiritually because I'm coming in contact with people with mental illness, and I'm doing intake paperwork. I'm doing all these things, and people coming in for psychiatric evaluations, and I work closely with the psychiatrist and dealing with these people. I'm like, yeah, why did I mean, there was other jobs that I applied for that you could have blessed me with.
Okay.
But right here,
right.
I know I want to work. He said, y'all said that's what you said you wanted.
Right, that's what you said. Yeah, you
and
decided.
That's where I put you.
Yeah, you decided.
But lo and behold, all the skills that I acquired
working there,
working the suicide hotline, dealing with people with mental illness, I never knew that y'all was going to place a man in my life that had experienced those things in his past, that I would have to have so much love and compassion and patience with, and those skills would come in handy.
They definitely came in handy.
So when I met him, I said, no, because I prayed to you, y'all. And I told you.
Y'all said, That's exactly what y'all said.
And I told you. I know I told you what I would like. Now, I ain't saying I'm going to tell you now, but I asked you. I said, y'all want my husband to be this, and that. And he said, I'm telling you. And this is how you know when Yah is speaking and when the adversary is speaking. In a very quiet voice, a very still voice, a very solid voice that never wavered. Yah kept saying, this is your husband. This is your husband. And how sometimes we wrestle with Yah. When we know the right thing, we know, okay, the Most High is telling me this. Sometimes we want to do our own thing. And when I met my husband and he began to tell me his background and his life, and I was like, I don't know, Yah. I don't know.
Yah said, I know.
And so I followed Yah. And it was one of the best decisions that I ever would have made in my entire life. When I say I got the best husband on the face of the earth that I could have ever prayed for. Like this man right here.
And I'm going to just say, Toda, Yah Toda.
Because, and this is what I want to say to the sisters. Religious isolation will make you
reject every man that walk past you.
Miss a blessing.
Most definitely.
Will make you reject opportunities in life.
Indeed.
But when you have spiritual insulation and you have the word of Yah in you, and you have a personal relationship with the Most High,
and Yeshua HaMashiach,
there is nothing that can deter you or make you make the wrong decision, because you're so connected to Yah. You have so much discernment that you're like, I'm afraid, but I know I need to step out on faith because Yah is telling me this.
Right.
And so when we talk about religious isolation versus spiritual insulation, we're saying, are you insulated? Do you have the spiritual insulation? Do you have Yeshua HaMashiach? Have you accepted Yeshua HaMashiach as your Lord and Savior? I know that's a taboo sentence in itself to say, considering the community that my husband comes from. Because a lot of people going to watch this and say, oh, he a Christian now. She done turned him into a Christian.
And
It's not about that.
allow me to emphasize on something.
Mm-hmm.
When people ask me about my belief system when I'm out and about, do you believe in Jesus, or are you Jewish, or are you this? This is the way I answer them. I'm gonna be frank with you. When they ask me, am I Jewish or Yehudi, I say, I'm from the tribe of Yehuda. I am from the tribe of Yehuda. Okay? Now, when they say, well, what's your religion? I always share with them this. I am not religious. I am a believer in truth, and what's connected to truth. Yeshua HaMashiach is connected to truth. Abraham, the friend of God, the friend of Yah, is connected to truth. Moses is connected to truth. All of them are connected to truth.
But this is
So, hold on, let me answer them. When I say I am a Hebrew Israelite, I let them know that I am a believer and I walk by faith and not religious. Why? Because Abraham, in order to become the friend of Yah, he was never religious. He walked by faith. When I shared that with them, they get, whoa. You see what I'm saying? Now, do I believe in Yeshua HaMashiach? Yes, I do believe in Yeshua HaMashiach. Why do I believe in Yeshua HaMashiach? Yeshua HaMashiach, he is also a Hebrew Israelite, according to identity. And Yeshua HaMashiach did not come to change the law, but through him made the law be fulfilled. He was gifted with the skills and with the persona in order to assist us as a people to carry out the law. Mm-hmm. Meaning, what is it to be compassionate? How do you be empathetic? Mm-hmm. As he say, he who without sin, you cast the stone first. That means he's presenting to us humility. He's saying, listen, brother, forgive those as you forgive those as you would like Yah to forgive you. Mm-hmm. So, if you didn't have on fringes and quarter blue, this is what Yeshua would say. It's written on the plates of your heart. Yah love you. It ain't about what you're putting in your mouth. It's about what's coming out of your mouth.
So what you're saying is, you're not sinning if you wear your fringes and quarter blue in remembrance, and you're not sinning if you don't.
No, it's not a sin. And it's just for that purpose, for a remembrance. That means if you don't remember in your heart and in your mind, then you should put them on so you can look down and say, oh, I remember. But when it's embedded in your brain and the crevices of your soul and in your heart, you can walk out in a 100% cotton t-shirt because cotton just allow your skin to breathe. Now that's once again knowledge and it's true that inherent power to produce a promised effect. You know, nylon gonna suffocate your skin. I'm not telling you go put on synthetic clothes so your skin can be suffering. You know what I'm saying?
So this conversation in itself is controversial and really taboo coming from your community, and I'm sure a lot of Hebrews are going to see it because still today there's this conflict between people wanting to believe that Yeshua is merely a messenger
or fiction,
wanting to believe that Yeshua is merely a messenger, which is taught in his community where he's from, or if he is truly the Messiah who came to reconcile us back to Yah. And this is what my husband was saying when the Bible says, Yeshua says that he did not come to condemn the law, but that through him the law may be fulfilled. I think a lot of people, they want to glaze over that because they don't really want to ingest or digest what that really means. And what it really means is in Yeshua's time, there was a religious isolation or highly religious environment that the priests and the Pharisees
Right.
and the Sadducees controlled
And conspired.
people's minds heavily. And they were so strict on the law. But the problem is the Hebrews had a problem keeping the laws.
We did. We had a problem keeping the law.
And when you think about it logically, it makes sense. How can I keep a law or a rule, right? When they say the rule of law, how can I keep a law or a rule if I don't know why?
Right. We just simply didn't know why.
If I don't know the reason it's important.
Right. What's the reason?
And so from the Old Testament, the laws and commandments were given. However, the Hebrew Israelites were still sinning because they didn't quite understand. They knew the law. They didn't understand the whys and the hows. And connecting the Old Testament to the New Testament, Yeshua really came that the laws could be fulfilled in the way where once you understand the whys and the hows,
you can carry it out.
You can carry it out. Yes. And you understand compassion and grace that, okay, if I fall once, I can get back up.
Right.
I can ask for forgiveness.
Right.
And a lot of people, they aren't going to believe that. And we live in Israel, where this is an environment that is still heavily both in the Hebrew Israelite community and also outside of the community, because this is a Jewish state. So if most of the people in the Hebrew Israelite community, and this is my opinion, if most of the people in the Hebrew Israelite community reject Yeshua, and almost all of the people in the Israeli state of Israel reject Yeshua, then we're still living in the very same environment that we were living in thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yes, we are.
Because you got to walk on eggshells with the Hebrews, or you might offend.
Exactly.
Or they might shun you silently.
When you speak the truth, you're going to become a threat.
And then you also have to be ready for the stares and the judgment of the Israelis, who, of course, they Jewish. This is a Jewish state. That's known. They Messiah ain't come yet. They don't see Yeshua with the eye. It's still the same. And so, but what I know, what we know, what we just read and what we read in our scriptures, that the Bible says, he who rejects me in front of men, I also will reject him in front of my Father.
Right.
So one thing we can't do as believers, and this, if this doesn't apply to you, that's okay. If you don't believe in Yeshua HaMashiach as the Messiah who has come to redeem and reconcile us to Yah, so we can have a personal relationship with Yah. If you don't believe that, this conversation ain't for you. But if you do believe that, you have to be bold in what you believe.
With fortitude.
And you have to be solid and resilient and resolved in what you believe in this society.
Yes.
And
it's okay to just speak that, because what I've learned, as my wife shared with me, the art of communication, okay? You should not be afraid to express what you're feeling and what you believe and what you're thinking. Worst case scenario, they're going to define it as your opinion. Worst case scenario, they're going to say that's your opinion. But even in this society that we live in this state of Israel, I'm going to be honest with you. They claim it to be a democratic state, right? However, it's an autocratic state. Let's not look at just that part. Let's go a little bit under the rug. You have another Hebrew Israelite community that's right under here. The current president, said that There's no room in that community for individuality. That means you are suppressing your character, your personalities for the what? The whole. That means if you like to laugh at something that you believe made you feel good, you can't laugh. You gotta suppress that laugh. That's gonna add several more minutes onto your life because the whole saying you better not laugh. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying we should be courageous enough to go out there and to speak the truth about Yeshua HaMashiach and also the truth about Yahuwah and let them know that y'all claim that this is a Jewish state. But let's be honest with one another. Y'all read the Bible, y'all even read the New Testament, but y'all didn't read that knowledge to have proper understanding. Y'all read that knowledge in order to redefine the understanding. That's exactly what they have done. And so that's why they are smoking cigarettes in Israel, drinking the most Coca-Cola in Israel. And if you really look at that at that phrase Coca-Cola, you're going to see 666, which is opposition, which is Satan and the devil, who in direct opposition to Yah, to the Creator. What am I saying? If they really believe that this is the land of Yah, of the Creator of heaven and earth, and by that understanding, it should be the land of the house of Israel, not just the Jews, but of Benjamin, Levi, Dan, Naphtali, all of the brothers. That means when they show opposition to Yeshua, let me give you some advice, my fellow brothers and sisters. Reveal to them the truth about them cigarettes they smoking. Reveal to them the truth about them getting dressed up on Purim and willingly putting on white and black makeup on their faces to look like a demon. Reveal to them the fact that they so quote unquote bold to walk outside with red horns and a red fork in their hands, with a red outfit in a black tail with a red point on the back of it. Be that bold to them to let them know that, listen, y'all behavior is not even honored to be within this land. Y'all know who y'all are. Y'all are Greeks. Y'all the same ones who produce the makeup, the same ones who produce the wigs, the same ones who produce the high heels in order to walk around here and to what? Show that y'all okay being devilish? Y'all okay being Greeks? So to this very moment, you have men, Israeli men and women, Israeli men calling Israeli men Motek. And I have to politely say to them, I prefer you not to call me Motek. Why? Because I'm not a woman. Secondly, I'm not your sweetie. Thirdly, I'm a man. And you're not going to soften my heart to you. So call me by my name or just simply say my brother. So therefore, my fellow brothers and sisters, we are not complying to the ideologies. Don't feel suppressed. Don't allow no European man or no Greek man in the land of Israel, in the state of Israel, to call you melanated brother or you melanated sister Motek, or let them tell you you belong to us or you one of us. Because we're not trying to be one of them. We're not trying to be one of them.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say. We're not trying to be one of them. Now y'all can say, oh, Nadav just speaking stuff. That's why I said the minimum you can call what I'm saying is my opinion. So, but truth has the inherent power to produce the promised effect. So so
So if we're not trying to be one of them,
But we not.
we got to determine who we trying to be. And so this is the question that we want to leave you all on, because we done tarried a long while now. Are we gonna I would like to introduce this based off what my husband was just saying, and I believe what my husband is saying is that the Bible tells us to be in the world and not be of the world.
Right.
And we have to develop a relationship with Yah such as we become distinguished and people are able to differentiate between us and us believers and non-believers.
Right.
Okay. And so how do we do that? How do we place that, bring that to fruition and place it in real life context? And so I had, as my husband was speaking, I had thought about this verse and I said, this verse makes sense right here that I would like to share. Matthew verse 7, verse 16.
You mean chapter 7?
That Matthew chapter 7, verse 16 through 20.
16 through 20?
Yes.
Okay.
And so Matthew chapter 7, verse 16 through 20. 16 says, ye shall know them by their fruits.
Right.
Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. And I thought that was just so beautiful and so applicable to this conversation right now, because when we think about the community that my husband comes from, Hebrew Israelite community, and like I said, I agree with the statement that truth has the inherent power to produce the promised effect. We have to ask ourselves as Hebrews, have we produced the promised effect as a Hebrew Israelite community, and also individually as Hebrews, whether it's our personal lives or our families. And this is a very serious topic, something that is swept under the rug and not often spoke about. My husband is out among the people all the time, and we're out. And when we are out, it hurts me. It hurts me to see people from the Hebrew Israelite community, see those who've been cast out or for whatever reason grew up in the community, and they're out there doing drugs. And they're out there prostituting, and they're out there bad, and they're out there living this life of just atheism. They have no
100%.
And I can't say it any other way, because if you say anything about Yah, oh, I ain't know Yah no more. That was in the kingdom. So whose fruit are these? Are these not your fruit, leaders?
Oh yes,
it's
your fruit.
Your fruit.
I just mentioned to the leader that I seen his daughter in the streets of Tel Aviv, and his response was, "That's not my daughter."
So if we say, and it's not just about him,
right?
Because I've heard so much
disowning, just disowning,
and casting out. And,
yes,
and I would hear in the community about people that are our peers or people that are younger that grew up or born and raised in the Hebrew Israelite community. And when you ask about them and they're out there in the streets and they're living these lives, and you say, hey, ask their parents, how is so-and-so? Oh, they out there living a pagan and with them pagans, and they got that from out there. No, they didn't. They were broken before they went out there in the world.
That's the truth. That's why they left to begin with, is because they was broken.
A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. So you telling me that everything in the kingdom was good and righteous in Yah's eyes and in paradise, and you had the truth that was able to produce the promised effect, and your child is out there? I don't believe it.
That means as a parent, you was either missing empathy, flexibility, compassion, focus on your children and not the brotherhood, and choosing not to neglect your children, and having the mental balance and knowing the difference between being fruitful and multiplying and being real with yourself and saying, yeah, this is how many children I want to stop with. Why? Because financially, my pockets is not going to allow me. And this is only realistically. My pockets is not going to allow me to provide for them equally. So this is what my wife is sharing with you.
So the scripture.
So when your children felt that neglect, that abandonment, that lack of nourishment, or the lack of attention, because we all know that attention energizes and intention transforms. So my question to you all is, what were y'all doing with y'all attention and what y'all were doing with y'all intentions?
And I didn't, and we essentially we saw this sermon, and we wanted to speak about religious isolation versus spiritual isolation because it was based on a sermon that we saw. We was like, wow, that's amazing.
Man,
Like it made so much sense.
so much sense.
And the reason that I brought this particular scripture up is because, like I said, a lot of times when you ask about real life situations within the community and within as us as Hebrew Israelites, and you seeing the struggle and you seeing what's happening to people's children and people's families falling apart, you have to ask yourself, have they produced the promised effect? And if they have not, then they obviously have not been in the truth. And so we cannot
In the whole truth.
We cannot put aside the word of Yah for our feelings being protected.
Thank you.
Our pride being protected.
Thank you.
Our ego being protected.
Thank you.
It just can't be done.
It can't be done.
We have to get out of this spiritual rut that we're seeing. And it's not just about people losing their children to the street life and drugs and gangs. It's also about the amount, the rampant divorces.
Oh,
The rampant
let's speak on that.
broken marriages and broken families within a community that someone has to answer for this.
It has to be answered for.
We're not asking the right questions because we're not looking in the right places, and the place to look
Is always within the Holy Bible.
the place to look is right here.
Listen,
And so,
about the divorces, let's stop right there. And we're going to come to a closing. And we're going to have a second episode.
definitely have to do it first.
And we believe that we may go into the third episode. And hey, it's all Yah's will. Let Yah will be done.
And our goal
Any
is
words
to
of closing?
Yes, our goal is to just open up a dialogue of conversation, and we would like to welcome you in. Maybe next time we will welcome some people to give their thoughts and their opinions in the dialogue and conversation of how can we go forward as a people, as a community. But first, we have to get to the root of what we actually believe. Are we on the same page, or is this a season of separating the wheat from the tare? Because let's be honest, everyone isn't going to believe in Yeshua. and if they're not, then this is not the conversation for them. We're only talking about the people who believe in Yeshua, who believe in the scripture, who believe in Yah, and want to become closer with Yah. That's what we're talking about. So,
And that being said, we're going to come to a closing. I would like to give a prayer before we proceed on. Bow your heads and humble your spirits. Yahwaro'i lo ikhsar bin odeshet yarbiteni al memunihot inahaleni nafshi shovev yancheni bema agletzerech uleman shmo gam ki elech begetzal mavet lo erara ki ata imadi shibtecha umeshantecha hema yenachamoni ta'aroch lepanai shulchan neget tzorerai Vishanti Bashemen, Roshi Kosi Ravaya, Achto Vechesed, Yerdefoni, Kol Yemei Chayai, Veshavti Bibit Yahuwah Leorich Yamin. Thank you, Yah Yahuwah, for allowing my wife and I to present this message before the audience whom will value and appreciate this message. And we pray that you allow them to receive redemption and to grow in their consciousness and to allow the breath of life to maintain within their souls so that they can continue to be a living soul. Yah Yahuwah, we ask that all of the warlocks, the witches, that they be cast out into the pits of hell with their wicked intents, so they would not seek to devour the remnant and those who are striving for truth and righteousness. We ask and we pray unto you, Yah Yahuwah, to present a petition that would decree and declare that your kingdom will forever live within heaven and in earth. With that being said, we pray in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Whew, sweetheart.